In Warzone 2, it's far harder to get your hands on a full loadout with a custom primary and secondary weapon. In most situations, you'll instead be getting a single weapon from a buy station and then having to have that used in a lot of different engagements. So in today's video, we're going to be covering 5 versatile jack-of-all-trades weapon builds that are going to serve you well as your only custom gun that you're holding at any one time until you get your hands on a full loadout later in the game. So let's begin today with what's probably still the most meta weapon in the game, the Taq-V. Now, built as everyone else is already building it, this is pretty versatile, but we've got a build for you today that is going to push that versatility to the max, allowing you to tackle the long range and some of those close range fights as well. So, beginning with your muzzle, you're going to put on the Echoless 80 muzzle. This is a suppressor, so keeps you low profile. It also buffs up the damage range, the recoil smoothness, and the bullet velocity. A very nice addition to start off our build with. For the tuning on this attachment and all the other attachments in this video, you'll notice that we're no longer recommending you to max out the sliders in either of the directions. This is because you don't get the best benefit from doing this. Both us here at Warzone Loadout and the legend himself, True Game Data, if you guys haven't checked him out, he does everything in terms of loadouts, stats, has his own website as well that goes a lot more into the data side of things, so definitely have to go check all of his stuff out. Links in the description. We've been working together trying to figure out how this tuning works, and we've seen that when we push these sliders all the way to one side, we're not getting the best results using the graph up here. For example, with bullet velocity versus aiming idle stability, if we move towards bullet velocity, it makes sense that we're gaining range and we're losing accuracy. However, when we reach our recommended value of about 0.43 and we keep going, we start losing accuracy, and for some reason, the range also drops. So we're just getting a worse overall result for absolutely no reason. So that's why our recommended value here is 0.43, and this will be echoed across all of our recommendations today, so keep that in mind. Next up, we're going to be adding on the 17.5-inch Tundra Pro barrel. We still want the longest barrel even in a versatile build because the other barrel really just lacks the gun range that we need to keep this gun viable. Here's our recommended tuning, focusing on recoil steadiness to keep our gun accurate at range, and also damage range, of course, to make sure that we can handle the long range fights as well as possible. For our underbarrel, we've been recommending a couple of different things in the past, but right now we recommend that you use the F-Tac Ripper. The F-Tac Ripper, the Commando Foregrip, and the VX Pineapple that we've recommended in the past all seem to give very similar recoil patterns, but the F-Tac Ripper's aiming idle stability improvements are what really push it over the edge at the moment. The aiming idle stability in general across the guns in the game is very, very weak, and you get a lot of sway, and that actually adds to how your recoil works as you start spraying as well. So the F-Tac Ripper is going to be what we pick here. To ensure this gun's an absolute laser beam, we're adding on some recoil stabilization and aiming idle stability. No explanation needed for our next attachment. It's going to be the magazine, specifically the 60 round mag. Giving ourselves the biggest mag is really important, especially when we're running this as our versatile jack of all trades gun. We need all the bullets in the mag that we can to handle long gunfights with multiple opponents. And then we're going to finish it off with an optic. We want to go with a 1x kind of optic, not something that's really zoomed in. We want this to be as versatile as possible, handle close and long range. So we like the Cronin Mini Pro the most at the moment. It's got a really clean sight picture, a blue dot as well, so it doesn't blend in with whatever you're shooting at, and the edges of the optic are also really thin as well, so nothing is getting in your way. So we'll put that on. And then for tuning, we're buffing up that ADS speed a little bit just so we can scope in that little bit quicker, keep our gun mobile, and we're maxing out the far eye position still. This still gives us overall the least visual recoil, so we're going to continue recommending this. If you find the far distance difficult, you can change this to personal preference, but for people who are trying to get the best at the game possible, far eye distance is a must. So for our second recommendation for a versatile build, it's going to have to be the Kastov 762. This is such a close competitor right now to the Taq-V. A lot of pro players are running this instead of the Taq-V. It's like a little bit of a battle up there. From our opinion, the Kastov 762 hits a little bit harder, but it's got that lower fire rate, so it's a bit less forgiving. It has similar recoil overall, maybe a little bit more recoil, but this build is going to keep it really nice and versatile, pretty snappy as well. Let's jump into how we're going to build it. The muzzle here is going to be once again a suppressor, the Polar Fire S. It gives us all of our necessary stats: bullet velocity, damage range, recoil smoothness as well, and sound suppression. All no-brainers right there. And we're taking that suppressor into the tuning and buffing buffing up its recoil smoothness and its bullet velocity. We're still going for the long barrel for this AR for the Kastov 7.62. That is the Cast 10 584mm barrel. The damage range is too good to miss out on, so that's a no-brainer to put on, even for a versatile loadout like the one we're building here. And in the tuning, we're buffing up recoil steadiness and damage range, pairing up really nicely with the suppressor we just added and tuned before this. On the Kastov 7.62, we're sticking with the F-Tac Ripper 56, similar to the Taq-56. It is too good to miss out on. The aiming idle stability improvements are even more necessary on this kind of gun, which has a little bit more kick than the Taq-56 we covered earlier. Tuning's pretty similar. We're finding those sweet spots on the sliders, buffing up our recoil stabilization and aiming idle stability for overall recoil control. Then chuck on the biggest mag. We've only got a 40 round mag available here, but it is a slower firing gun overall, so the actual time it takes you to get through the mag is about the same as the Taq-56 anyway. And finish up your build once again with the Cronen Mini Pro. If you don't have the Cronen Mini Pro unlocked, then you can pick another one of these, or if you just happen to have a personal preference here, they all have similar stats in terms of actually how much they slow down your ADS speed, so you don't need to worry about that. It's kind of personal preference, but we love the blue dot and the unobstructed view. I think it's the cleanest one out there, so it's going to be our recommendation. And the tuning of this attachment stays exactly the same. We've got that buffed ADS speed in the sweet spot right here, and that furthest eye distance for less visual recoil. For our third recommendation today, we've gone for the Kastov 7.62's older brother, the RPK, an absolutely insanely hard-hitting LMG that is very much in the meta at the moment. The versatile build today is going to be really good because we're not going to need a barrel because we don't need to extend its range. It's an LMG, it already covers that for us, and we're not going to need to change the mag because it already comes with a very large mag that is not too hard to reload in comparison to some of the other LMG options like the RAL. For our starting attachment on the muzzle, it's going to be the same as the Kastov 7.62. It's the Polar Fire S suppressor. It is the best overall suppressor, even in a versatile build, especially for the improved damage range. The bullet velocity helps a lot, and it makes this LMG an absolute beast. It's an absolute necessity. For the sliders in the tuning, we found the best spots on both. We're trying to max out our recoil smoothness and bullet velocity without affecting the other stats too much. We'll then jump straight to the underbarrel. It's going to be the Ripper again. Don't need to explain exactly why. Aiming idle stability is just the big one here once again. And tuning remains similar to how we've set it up on our other guns. We're trying to get the best recoil stabilization and aiming idle stability. The last of the common attachments here is going to be the Cronen Mini Pro. Gives us our nice 1x, keeps it versatile in comparison to some of those higher zoom optics that really don't do well at the close range. And that optic is tuned up exactly as we've done it previously. We're giving ourselves a bit more ADS speed and the furthest eye position for the least visual recoil. Now this is where things get a little bit different. We're not using a barrel or a mag here because it's an LMG. So instead we're going to chuck on a rear grip, specifically the true Taq grip, which gives sprint to fire speed and ADS speed. Basically makes the RPK feel much more like a hard-hitting AR than an LMG. Gives us that little bit more mobility in our build. To keep it balanced out, versatile, and not lose too much recoil control, we are going to buff up the steadiness and the aiming idle stability to their sweet spots on the sliders in the tuning. And the final attachment here to seal the deal is actually going to be some ammunition, specifically the high velocity ammo. This gives an incredible boost to bullet velocity, and the con of damage range, while seeming a little bit scary, is very minimal from all the testing that's been done. It's something like 2% less damage range, but you gain like 50% bullet velocity. It's an absolute no-brainer when you've got the slot available to put this on your gun. And what's even better is that by tuning up the high velocity ammo, we're able to gain back damage range and gain even more bullet velocity. We found the sweet spots here so you don't lose out on a load of recoil control though. The penultimate recommendation today is going to look very similar to the first gun we covered today, the Taq-56. Well, this is actually the Taq-V, which is the battle rifle version of the Taq-56. With how popular the Taq-56 is at the moment, the Taq-V doesn't get used as much as it really should be. It's very underrated. It's a battle rifle, so it hits really hard, and it has that single shot mode, which has been proven to do more damage than the full auto mode. So you gain already some improved versatility just from the nature of it being a battle rifle. We're starting off with the same muzzle as the Taq-56, which is the Polar Fire S. It's pretty much the same as all the suppressors we've been recommending today. It gives us all the stats we need for a decent long range but versatile gun in Warzone 2. Tuning here is for sweet spots on recoil smoothness and bullet velocity. Unsurprisingly, we're taking the longest barrel available, which is the 18-inch Precision 6 barrel. It gives us all the stats we need for range once again, pairs up really nicely with the suppressor. And for the tuning, we're gaining a slight bump in damage range and recoil steadiness. We're adding on the F-Tac Ripper 56 underbarrel again for its aiming idle stability and overall allowing us to tame the Taq-V as much as possible, tame down some of that recoil that makes it a little bit less viable than the Taq-56 in a lot of scenarios. And we're gaining even more recoil improvements in the tuning with some nice buffs to recoil stabilization and aiming idle stability tuned to their sweet spots. You probably don't need me to tell you, but we're going for the large mag once again. We've got a 50 round drum available for the Taq-V. With its slightly lower fire rate, this mag seems like it lasts forever for the 7.62 ammunition. You can gun down so many enemies if you're keeping this gun in control using the other attachments we've already put on. And finish it up once again with our versatile optic of choice, the Cronen Mini Pro. For the tuning here, we're staying with our increase to ADS speed and furthest eye position. The final build today is for a gun that you probably haven't seen in many custom builds before, but we think you're going to start seeing it a lot more, and it's the STB556. This might be the perfect versatile gun, even just out of the box. It already feels very, very snappy to use in comparison to other heavier ARs, and with this build, it might be the versatile king. This build is going to follow a very similar format to the other ARs we've already covered, so we're starting off with the muzzle, the Echoless 80, giving us the damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil smoothness we need, and also the sound suppression to keep us nice and low profile. For the tuning, we're putting in a significant bump to the overall recoil control from recoil smoothness, as well as improved bullet velocity. Next, we need a barrel. It's going to be the 24.4-inch Bruin S620. Once again, the longest barrel. You've probably got the gist of things so far in terms of building these builds, but it gives everything we need of damage range, bullet velocity, a bit of hip fire accuracy as well in case someone pushes you and you need to just hip fire to get out of that situation a little bit easier, and also overall recoil control. For the tuning on the barrel, we're going to buff up the recoil steadiness and the damage range a little bit on both of those. Don't need a huge amount because these are the sweet spots that we've found. You're probably already predicting where we're going here. We're putting on an underbarrel, and it's going to be the F-Tac Ripper 56 once again. That aiming idle stability is just the king of all stats, it seems, for these underbarrels, especially when you've got all these underbarrels that seem to work pretty similarly. Tuning here is exactly the same as we've done for all of our other F-Tac Rippers. We're buffing that recoil stabilization and aiming idle stability. I'm going to say it. Can we please get the option to be able to save tuning for specific attachments? That would be really handy so that when I'm putting this on all of my guns, I can set it up exactly like this every single time. The only larger mag we have available that's a full auto mag is the 42 round mag. It's not a massive boost in comparison to some of the other options. This gun still does have a decently high fire rate, so you will go through the ammunition on this a little bit quicker, but having a slightly smaller mag keeps this gun very mobile in comparison to other options. And we're wrapping up this build and all of today's builds finally with a Cronen Mini Pro as our optic. Don't need to give all the explanation here of all the unobstructed view and stuff. We've covered that already. Tuning here is exactly the same. We found the sweet spot on this left slider to gain us some nice ADS speed, and we've taken the furthest eye position for the least visual recoil possible on the STB556. And that is all of the builds we've got for you today. For just 5,000, you can go to a buy station, pick up one of these, and honestly run with this as your only main weapon in your build for an extended amount of time throughout the game. If you found this video helpful or informative, then make sure you share it with friends to get these builds out there, and also subscribe down below, hitting the bell notification as well to make sure you're always updated with new uploads from the channel. We've got a lot of cool stuff planned. We've got stuff updating on the website as well, which is also linked down below. So a lot of awesome stuff coming up for the Warzone loadout ecosystem. Now, if you watching or someone that you know, one of your friends, is new to Warzone 2 and is struggling to unlock attachments and figure out what kind of thing they can put in their loadout early on in their Warzone 2 journey, well, we've got a video linked here, which is our recommendation for a beginner loadout. It features a long range and a short range option with very easy to unlock attachments. You're not gonna have to go around and play with 20 different weapons to get these. It's gonna serve you really nicely. So go check that video out next and see if it's useful for you.